So I want to thank everybody for coming out today. And I want to acknowledge any elected officials in the audience, aside from our mayor, who's one of our judges today, that that I don't recognize, and the league officers and members, the League of Women Voters Alameda. Any of the officers and members who are here, we should give them a big hand, because. And then we have the college professors from the College of Alameda who helped work in prep with the students. I'd also like to give a special shout out to Laura Kinley. She is a person, she's a league member, and she's the producer of the Democracy Matters PSA that I'm so happy that everybody has seen and has been raving about, and Bob Johns, who's the video editor. Where's Bob? Hi, Bob. Laura is also creator of the League of Women Voters Alameda TV quiz show for 11th and 12th graders. So we're really trying to get civics to be something very, very into the minds of the young kids that are graduating and coming out of school today. My name is Alice Freed, and I am an easy voter, card-carrying member of the League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. I've focused a good deal of fulfilling my civic responsibility to finding ways to encourage young people to engage politically. But getting young people to realize the power of their vote and their voice politically is a challenge. I have to say that apathy and criticism are hard nuts to crack. And sometimes the difficulty was not just enlightening young people about their political responsibilities and power, but also the older voters and activists who raised them. But here we are. The exception to that rule, of course, is the League of Women Voters. And I'm often told, isn't the League of Women Voters a club full of little old white ladies with gray hair? And I say, yeah. But the truth is, since its creation in 1920, after the passage of the 19th Amendment that gave women the right to vote, the League's goal is to empower citizens to shape better communities and to use the power of the vote to improve the general welfare of the people. In other words, the League is set up to help make democracy work. As I stated in the PSA, democracy to me is simply stated is a government of, by, and for the people. The women who fought for the right to vote understood, though, that voting was only part of a citizen's responsibility to enhance democracy. They understood that it is equally important not to squander or surrender a vote because of not understanding the issues. And remember, it's the issues that the League promotes. It's the issues that we want everyone to understand, so that when they're choosing leaders, they choose leaders who understands the issues and is willing to fight for them based on what they believe should happen here. In 2020, it will be 100 years since the League of Women Voters set out to educate women on the issues in their community and the nation. And it's been 5 years, it will be 5 years since the former College of Alameda president, Joylyn Blake, and me, along with one of our mutual friends, Dory Burstock, sat down to lunch at a Moroccan restaurant and discovered through conversation that we shared a passion to prepare young people to build better communities, the same mission as the founders of the League of Women Voters. So we set out in partnership to empower high school students to strive not only to be productive in the workplace, but also in society by providing them an opportunity to learn what it means to have a common good mindset and to give access to them to tools that develop thought leadership and citizenship. So now, here we are at the 4th Annual League of Women Voters, College of Alameda, Democracy Matters Speech Tournament. Yay! And I just want to say something else. The battle we face in these bewildering times to preserve and protect our democracy is palpable. But the role the League has historically played to ensure that all Americans have the right to vote, access to quality and affordable education, health care, housing, justice, and equality for all is real. That's why this partnership, this connection between the historic League of Women Voters and this Alameda Community Education Institution is poised to advance the promise stated in the Constitution that anyone from any walk of life should have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. For our young people, though, to even know that promise exists, they must be taught civics, and we all know that's a rarity in our education system these days. But how else can we expect to engage young people in the political process if they don't even understand why we have a government, let alone how it works? And I say that based on one of my own personal experiences. When the Civil Rights Bill of 1964 was passed, I was in high school. Don't start doing the math. And I was enrolled in a civics class, not a social studies class with a homework assignment on government, but a full school year of hands-on learning about government and how it works. That year when the bill passed, Mr. Higginbottom, that was my civics teacher's name, he had voting machines sent in so that we could actually learn how to pull the lever because we knew nothing about that kind of thing before. Our class elections became mock examples of what would happen nationally. We had the candidates running for our class president, they had to have credentials, they had to present their platforms, they had to campaign for our votes and explain to us at lunchtime, before classes, anytime they had a free moment, they had to explain to us what they were going to do to accommodate our needs. It was fun. It was actually fun to actually learn and to grasp the concept of the value of your vote. They wanted our vote, and it was fun actually watching them and seeing when I think back on it, seeing how comfortable they were in their own skin to stand up before the crowd and speak out. So many young people don't have that, which is why this program is something that's good. Studies suggest that millennials are now the largest voting bloc in America, with their children catching up. If we don't want our democracy to slide further into anarchy with oligarchy rule, because these young people are not critical thinking, informed citizens, we must make sure that they are empowered with knowledge. Knowledge about our country's history, knowledge about how government works, but most of all, we must make sure that they understand the role they have to play, that they must play to make democracy work. If we don't want fear and ignorance to create more confusion and governmental chaos, we must make sure that young people believe, like we do in the League, in respect for humanity and civility. We must make them understand how good public policy builds communities, and that when they use their voices collectively for the common good, they advance individually. If we don't want bigotry and hate to be weaponized to weaken and sicken our society, thereby our democracy as well as our economy, we must make sure that young people understand and appreciate the value of diversity ethnic and cultural diversity, as well as diversity of ideas and ideals that enables positive solutions to problems to evolve. This is what the League of Women Voters did for the first time women voters in 1920. This is what the League of Women does for all voters now. It is what it did for those little gray-haired white ladies who are like energy bunnies, registering voters, arranging public information forums, conducting intense, thorough policy studies to produce pro and con data that citizens can use to make informed voting decisions. To the League of Women Voters and the College of Alameda, this is what makes democracy work. And to these institutions of activism and education, democracy matters. That's why this program was hatched, to pass on the League's tradition of informed citizenship and encouragement to young people to get involved in our political process. Just think of the impact of the Parkland kids that had on gun legislation in Florida and on the 2018 election. And Black Lives Matter. Their voter registration and community public policy engagement has helped to elect local as well as national public officials committed to equal justice under the law, which is their cause. In my opinion, flat out, the League of Women Voters and its commitment to active participation in government has never been more important. And thanks to the College of Alameda's commitment to the complete education of students, we are here again today at this Democracy Matters speech tournament. I'm so glad all of you are here. Today's topic, what would make young people vote? Thank you so much for coming. Now a little bit about the process for getting how the kids got here. The topics are selected from issues that the League has studied and have taken a position for the most part. College of Alameda professors, the two young ladies in the back over there, from the communication department, coach and prep students for the competition. Students apply online. They choose a position on the topic and are required to submit a 5 to 7 minute video of their persuasive speech that follows the required outline and guidelines provided in the application. The speech must have an introduction, body, a maximum of 3 main points or argument, and a conclusion. The judges have been given specific criteria that include accuracy of content, preparation, logical and clear analysis of issue, as well as confidence and conviction during presentation. All participants will be given a medal and a certificate of participation to enhance their college applications. The winning speaker will receive a $1,000 scholarship, the runner-up $500, donated from funds donated by members of the League of Women Voters in Alameda. Now we'd like to increase that scholarship fund. So join the League, and if that's a little heavy for you, make a contribution noting that it's for youth outreach. I had to put that in there. Again, thanks to all of you for coming out to this evening and sharing your time to encourage these young students on their life's journey. A journey that with communication and critical thinking skills, events like this embodies will be filled with confidence, optimism, and hope. So sit back and let's get started. First, I'm going to introduce the judges, and I'm going to start with Dr. Tim. Dr. Tim Karras was appointed College of Alameda president in January 2017. Tim joined the College of Alameda in July 2014 as Vice President of Instruction. Prior to College of Alameda, Tim was Dean of Liberal Studies and Language Arts and Director of Library Services at Mission College. Previous to working in academia, he worked as a librarian for the city of Palo Alto and Redwood City. His educational background includes a Doctor of Education from Fielding Graduate University, Master's in Library and Information Science from San Jose State University, and a Bachelor of Arts in Geography from Humboldt State University. Dr. Tim. Next is Gloria Chun-Hu. Gloria Chun-Hu is first Vice President of the League of Women Voters California, having previously served as president of her local league in San Jose. As a member of the League of Women Voters State Board, she chairs the Diversity and Equity Task Force, as well as the Legislation Committee and the Climate Change Task Force. With her local league, she is a producer-moderator for Insights and Perspectives, a televised public affairs voter education program from the league. It's very interesting. Gloria had a career in marketing and public relations in the private and museum sectors before retiring. She is also the founding editor of the bilingual community newspaper Sampan and served on the City of San Jose's Planning Commission. Gloria was born and raised in Honolulu, attended the University of Hawaii, and is a graduate of Boston University. Now retired, she and her husband, a retired IBM engineer, Stan, I believe, enjoy travel and reading. Gloria Chun-Hu. Our special guest judge is Judge Tara N. Flanagan. Judge Flanagan joined the Alameda County Superior Court in January of 2013 and is now in her 7th year of service to Alameda County. After serving her first 2 years as a judge in family law, she now sits in the criminal division in downtown Oakland and hears misdemeanor criminal cases. In her extrajudicial duties include serving on the board of the Alameda County Bar Association's Legal Access Alameda, where underserved members of the community get help assessing the justice system, and also as a board member of the International Association of LGBTQ Judges. Previously, as an attorney, Judge Flanagan was a Los Angeles County prosecutor and a legal aid attorney helping families that suffered from domestic violence. As an attorney, she was sought-out speaker about LGBTQ domestic violence. She has also worked on the board of directors of many LGBTQ and women lawyers organizations. She previously played basketball in college on a scholarship, like my granddaughter, and later rugby for the USA's women's national rugby team. Now retired from the athletic competitions, Judge Flanagan now enjoys long-distance bicycling. In her spare time, she enjoys the island of Alameda, the estuary, farmers markets, one of my favorites, and walking her dog. Judge Flanagan. And finally, but not least, we are very lucky to have our mayor as a judge. Judge Marilyn Ezzie Ashcraft was elected to the Alameda City Council in 2012. She served as vice mayor from 2012 to 2014, re-elected in 2016, and elected as mayor in 2018. Prior to her election, the mayor spent 16 years serving the community on the Planning Commission Board, Economic Development Commission, and as Alameda Hospital Director. As mayor, she represents Alameda at the League of California Cities, serves on the League's East Bay Division Executive Committee. She is a member of the Alameda Unified School District Council Subcommittee and AC Transit Interagency Liaison Committee. Marilyn grew up in Alameda and is a proud graduate of Edison Elementary, Lincoln Middle, and Alameda High her whole life. She earned her BS from UC Davis, a JD from Santa Clara University School of Law, and is the first Arab American to serve on the Alameda City Council. Mayor Ashcraft. And would you like to say a few welcoming words to the community before I finish up?
Thank you, everyone, for being here, and thank you to the League of Women Voters of Alameda and the College of Alameda for organizing this. I have participated or been privileged to be a judge before, and it is always so impressive to see and hear you young people that we're about to hear from. It's great training, and everything that Alice said is true. We need more voters, I think now more than ever, to stay engaged and to get out and vote and make a difference. So thank you for participating in democracy from an early age. I know you'll make it a lifelong habit. Thank you.
I have the honor of introducing our first speaker, Iman Kadri.
The following dates have gone down in history because they're fundamental to our American democracy. 1870, the 15th Amendment gives Black men the right to vote. 1920, the 19th Amendment gives women the right to vote. 1971, the 26th Amendment gives 18-year-olds the right to vote. These dates are fundamental to our American democracy. Without them, I and 38.4% of Generation Z would not be able to vote today. Generation Z, or Gen Z, is known as those born between 1995 and 2010. NPR has reported that the 18 to 29-year-old age group makes up about the same amount of the population as baby boomers, yet we continue to underperform at the polling station. As one of the most diverse and progressive generations, we have the power to drastically change the outcome of elections. So why are youth known for underperforming at the polls? And what can we do to change that? This past midterm election, I had the opportunity to work at a polling station. I was especially inspired by the parents who brought their kids with them to show them why voting is so important. As I saw at the polling station and at my high school, most young voters feel that they can't vote because they're ill-informed and that they believe their vote won't matter. But we're coming closer to changing that attitude. My generation is starting to show up at the polls. According to Tufts University, voter turnout for those in the 18 to 29-year-old age group, for the 18 to 29-year-old age group surged from 21% in 2014 to 31% in 2018, making 2018 a historic midterm election. So what caused this increase in youth voter turnout? The answer lies in increasing social media as a tool for political engagement, showing politicians that we are forced to reckon with, and making voting more accessible. According to the Global World Index, a market research company, Generation Z spends about 3 hours every day on social media. That means you have our attention for 3 hours every day on platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and Snapchat. I voted stickers pop up everywhere on social media around election time. Even celebrities like Ariana Grande, Beyonce, The Rock, Will Ferrell post about the importance of voting. Connecting with young voters is becoming increasingly important, especially on social media. A great example of this is the engagement that Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has engaged on Instagram. She uses Instagram in a way that other Congress members have not before. Instead of just posting meeting updates and award receptions like most Congress members, she brings constituents into her daily life. As a young voter, I can easily connect with her because she's using social media to explain political points. One way she's done this effectively is through her live videos, where she does daily tasks and like cooking and talks about politics as she cooks. Live videos and short clips explaining stances are especially helpful to young voters because, according to Forbes, youth only have an 8-second attention span. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez knows how to engage us in those 8 seconds. I now personally go out of my way to watch her videos online. And in doing so, I've learned more about the Green New Deal, more about member orientation, and more about why my voice matters. Door-to-door knocking may have been effective back in the day, but now, today, sharing and posting is how you can connect with young voters. Another big part of increasing youth voter turnout is increasing activism. The March for Our Lives mobilized young people and gave them a chance to express how gun violence affected their communities. The Women's March and walkouts in the past few years at high schools have been spurring political engagement. Even at my high school, registering to vote was available during the walkout that protested against gun violence. We're finally realizing how important it is to vote on issues that directly impact us. And in response, we hope that politicians will listen and start working with us to create change. For politicians to create that change, they need to start by connecting with youth. The Facebook hearing last year was a prime example of how out of touch politicians are. If you've watched those hearings, you've probably been embarrassed by the questions Congress members ask. They range from simple things like, how can Facebook make money? And to really odd questions like, why a senator kept getting chocolate ads for his favorite chocolate brand. For my peers and I, watching these questions being asked and watching Mark Zuckerberg smirk every time he got one of those odd questions was painful. It showed us how distant our representatives are from the issues that impact us and the issues that we care about, like data privacy. As I mentioned earlier, young people don't vote because they don't think their vote will matter. And now that we live in a generation where tech is at our fingertips, we want politicians to understand the impact that tech has on our generation. The other and final major way we can engage youth voters is by making voting more accessible to young people. In California, students are given numerous resources to vote. Prepaid mail-in ballots allow us to vote even while we're on a college campus. Voter pre-registration means that we can already vote when we turn 18. Detailed voting guides that summarize the information about candidates and measures help us make informed voting decisions. Most other states don't have these resources. In Pennsylvania, Connecticut, and Alabama, there is no early voting. And in Rhode Island and Colorado, voters don't receive information about candidates. So what can we do to expand on this? We can send out text reminders, make election a federal holiday. We can put voting guides on campuses and in schools. Because at the end of the day, this is not a partisan issue. It's our civic duty to vote. And as youth, we have more at stake. Our lives and our livelihood depends on how we vote. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Vincent Gao.
Professor Robert Brehm once told me, if you don't vote, then you're voting for whoever wins. Voting is the most important right we as American citizens can have. Voting is what gives us a voice in the government. A voice in the government is what allows change to happen. And with change comes a better America. The voting age in America is 18. So when I turn 18, I will vote in the next election. When I turn 18, I will already have a voice in the government. When I turn 18, I want to be part of the young voters who voted in the 2018 midterms because according to the Center for Information and Research on Civic Learning and Engagement, 31% of young voters voted compared to last year's 21%. So everyone, vote. Vote so we can make America a better place because we all want to make a better America, don't we? One of the most prevalent reasons why I see young voters don't vote is because they don't think the vote matters. It may seem that your vote in the hundreds and hundreds of millions of votes may not matter, but let me ask you a question. If everyone thought this way, why are there still elections? People are voting for a reason. They believe that they can make a difference in this world. They believe that they can change things. Another reason why I see young people aren't voting is because they don't care about the government or our politics. They care about their friends, their social life, and most importantly, themselves. If I am one of those uninformed, uneducated, self-centered kid, you may ask, why would I want to vote? Well, here's one simple reason. It is because it is important. Again, voting is the most important rights we as American citizens can have. How do you pass legislation you want to be passed? By voting. How do you control the government? By voting. How do you get to see change in your community? By voting. Without voting, the dominoes will fall to turn America into a dictatorship like those of Soviet Russia, Nazi Germany, and North Korea. Yes, young voters may not know or even care about our government and politics, but if they understand the importance of voting, maybe then will they be motivated to vote a little more. If you don't believe me, just look at the women's suffrage movement. The Seneca Falls Convention of 1848 was organized by none other than Lucretia Mott, and this generated a lot of attention. This was one of the early actions used to promote feminism in the United States. These actions continued and led on to the formation of the National Women's Party, which was led by Alice Paul. Alice Paul and the party fought fervently for the women's rights, in particular, the women's right to vote. They rallied, they protested, and they fought until Alice Paul was arrested for fighting too fervently. But even then, even in jail, Alice Paul would not stop protesting. She led a 3-day hunger strike that was only stopped when police officers had to force feed her food through a tube. But she got what she wanted. August 20th, 1920. This was a day that the 19th Amendment was passed, and women were given the right to vote. It took 72 years for women to gain the right to vote. If voting was so unimportant, then why? Why would women fight a war for 72 years just to vote? This is because they knew it was the only way for them to get change to happen. The only way for them to have a voice in this large country. The only way for them to have a meaning in the United States of America. Franklin Delano Roosevelt once said, "Nobody will ever deprive the American people of the right to vote except themselves. And the only way they can do this is by not voting." Now do you see why it is so important to vote? Voting is a fundamental part of being an American citizen. Voting is a right so many people fought to get. To vote is to be American. Now is the perfect time to exercise this essential right. The presidential election is coming up in 1 year, and it is now time for you to vote. Maybe you didn't vote in 2016 and did not like who won. Maybe you did vote and liked who won. Either way, vote. Vote because, as my professor once said, if you don't vote, then you're voting for whoever wins. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Katrina Chan.
Hi, before we start, can I have a show of hands? How many of you are between the age of 18 to 29? Okay, good. That's not a lot of you. I won't point you out. Okay, so how many of you voted in our last election? Oh. Okay. Oh, well, anyway, there was a lot of you. That's good. Unfortunately, that doesn't reflect our national average. According to the Brookings Institute, in 2016 presidential election, millennials were voted the least compared to other adults and generations. Only half of the population voted and submitted their ballots, continuing a long-time trend. So why are young adults the least voters to vote? As a young woman and a future voter myself, I asked this question to my peers and family. They all answered that young generations don't vote because they're an irresponsible generation. They have no interest in politics and are too busy to be motivated to vote. Why is this? For starters, they're so occupied in supporting themselves and their family in college or work. They already have so many demands placed on them that researching voting issues and actually voting takes up time. So how do we solve this problem and motivate more people to vote? Today, I'm here to argue that if young people knew more about the benefits of voting, they would be more motivated to vote. Specifically, I will be discussing how voting changes their community for the better and share their beliefs to be represented and to live in a better future. I would like to start discussing how voting allows you to change your community. Imagine your home harbors everyday crime, starving children, homeless adults, and pollution, a dangerous place for your family to live in. This is what happens when you don't vote for a change. To help improve your community, young people should elect for someone who benefits them, their family's well-being, and their home. An article by Insight Sources talks about former Obama's administration and how they were left to deal with America's failing economy, where millions lost their jobs, struggle with medical bills, and live in an unhealthy environment. But as president in 2008, Obama led the nation through 81 months of consecutive job growth, took action to lower uninsured rate for people to gain coverage, and helped change climate change. Took action on climate change. As you can see, the homes of America was not a healthy place for citizens. But as president, Obama took action to make America a safer place for them. Young voters should be motivated to elect a candidate who they agree with on laws and views. This merits them, their family, and others on a safe, secure, and healthy society. Whether they are already at satisfaction with their home, they should be encouraged to help others make their desired community a reality by voting. Next, I would like to discuss how voting ensures your beliefs to be represented. When young people vote, they have a chance to support the Me Too movement, Black Lives Matter, LGBTQ, gun control. The candidate young people will choose will support their beliefs to the government. In PBS American Experience, in 1962, Cesar Chavez, a labor activist, stood up for the civil rights of farm workers. His protest received the support of Robert F. Kennedy, a government worker, and the brother of the late President John F. Kennedy. His protests were presented to the court, and his fight for worker rights was recognized and acknowledged. Electing someone who you agree with is beneficial to your demands and help make a good change. Without Robert F. Kennedy being elected as the closest advisor to the president, he wouldn't be able to represent the struggles of American farm workers and their uncomfortable working conditions. And, young voters should be influenced to vote for for someone to represent and support their opinions to change the world. Now that I shared how voting is beneficial to their beliefs, did you know that voting doesn't just affect young people but also future generations? Voting for a change can help make society brighter and better for future generations. An article published to Panago Records, Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf was seeking millions of dollars to help support schools and college tuition in Pennsylvania. The massive spendings towards his plan were given to public schools, prisons, pension obligations, and healthcare for the poor. As you can see, Wolf cares about Pennsylvania and is making an effort to make the community even better than it is now for its future generation. Young adults interested in starting a family should be motivated to vote to improve the environment for children. To further encourage young adults to vote, the government should provide voting as a curriculum to make it a habit for growing children there to have a say in society. Nowadays, technology is very advanced, and young adults are using smartphones and social media, online news, etc. Government should take advantage of the internet to make it easier for young adults to vote. Voting day should also become a holiday to celebrate the freedom of speech, to spend time with family and friends to vote. Young adults should also be grateful to have a say in their government, while other parts of the world wish they could. Young people think voting won't matter because it won't change anything, but it does. In conclusion, I talked about how young people would, if young people knew more about the benefits of voting, they would be more motivated to vote. I covered how it changes the lives of young people for a better future, and I suggest that schools focus more on voting and voting day become a holiday. Government should also make use of the technology they have. So how many of you are ready to vote in our next election of 2020? Thank you.
I'm pleased to introduce our next speaker, Sonia Ames.
Abraham Lincoln once said, "The ballot is stronger than the bullet." Many may ask, why vote? That's the equivalent of why speak. According to ABC, in this year's midterm, voters aged 19 to 28 made up 13% of the overall electorate, 2% more than in 2014. But that's not enough. These young voters will ultimately determine our future, and if they are not speaking up, who will? This issue of low voting outcome will gradually be detrimental to our society. This means a lot to me because in just a few years, I will be able to vote, and I want to encourage everyone to use their vote that people rightfully fought for. I hope to achieve a future where everyone will contribute to our nation, so we will actually be one of the people, by the people, and for the people. To motivate young voters, we must use social media, make voting more accessible, and most importantly, show that they can make a difference. Increasing use in social media will allow for a greater voter turnout in this era of technology because of pressure from role models. During the 2008 presidential campaign, Oprah's endorsement for Obama allowed him to have 1 million extra votes because of her high-known status, because of her credibility. Let's look at a more recent event, the 2018 midterms. Taylor Swift revealed her endorsement for candidates Phil Bredesen and Jim Cooper on social media. And in just 2 days, there were about 213,000 more voters, the majority being 18 to 24. Today, we constantly see kids glued to their screens. Literally, they can't take their eyes off it. If people they look up to encourages them to vote on social media, it have a bigger impact on them, opposed to the government. Through social media, the message to vote can spread quickly like a wildfire, leaving a mark and waiting for its next viewer. What young voters need is inspiration to know that their role models are part of politics, and therefore they should be too. Not only will using social media help, it will be crucial to have automatic registration and eliminate ex-offender laws to provide the accessibility that young voters need. As a teenager myself, I know how lazy we are. We don't want to sit and fill out a form. That's like reading a textbook and answering questions. We've done that way too many times. When we can automatically be registered at the DMV. Currently, only 16 states have made this possible, but if all 50 states can make this happen, it can bring about 22 newly registered voters in just the first year. Voters are also restricted by criminal records. And some of you may be wondering how that affects young voters. People in the minority, especially African Americans, are caught for minor things or nothing at all because they are a constant target compared to whites. Sooner or later, something will go on their criminal record and impede them from voting. 6 million more voters can be added if we eliminate ex-offender laws. If we think about it, everyone should be able to vote. It's not a privilege, but a right. We can also use devices, so we don't have to go to voting polls or drop off our ballots, but with the click of a button. This click of a button will be the path to more young voters. Even though this may be controversial, we can take this opportunity to create a more secure voting system. Making voting accessible will do nothing unless we show these young voters that they can make a difference. Younger generations want to know that they are capable of turning their vote into power. Many older citizens throw remarks at them because they do not believe that they have the experience to make the right decisions. Megan Newsom, a student of the University of California, stated, "It's frustrating that young voters are told that they are shameful for not voting. And then we ask for the measures that ensure that we can vote. We are often mocked. We must encourage, not criticize. Believe, not shun. Tell them that they can, not they can't." The words of Lyndon B. Johnson, "A man without a vote is a man without protection." By throwing away their vote, young voters sacrifice a world they want to live in. A vote is the line between what happens and what doesn't. In 2008, Carl Cassell kept his seat in the state legislature by one vote to Democratic candidate Mike Kelly. They need a sense of encouragement and purpose. And who are they going to get this from? Us, and only us. Voting turnout from young voters are necessary in the future. We must make it clear that their vote matters, that they can make the impact, and that they can change the world with that one vote. Use social media, make voting more accessible, and show that they can make a difference. They need to feel like they can help, change, and speak in a world where they are often underestimated. They must know that their vote is their power, and that it's up to them on how they use it. This is not only applied to young voters, but all of us. Before you throw away your ballot, forget about it, and just leave it there. Remember the words of Susan B. Anthony. Someone struggled for your right to vote. Use it. Thank you.
Okay, and our last speaker tonight is Elvis Obiora.
Past President Lyndon B. Johnson once said, "Voting is the first duty of a democracy." The democracy of the United States is supposed to be of the people, by the people, and for the people. However, people under 30 tend to not vote and be involved in our democracy as much as people over 30. People under 30 are often portrayed as selfish beings who could care less. This is incorrect, as most protests and petitions are started by young people. Young people were the majority of the people in Black Lives Matter protests and March for Our Lives. Most voters, who tend to be older adults, own property, businesses, or have kids. Property taxes, business taxes, and security are some of the major reasons why people vote. For example, campaigns on lowering taxes on properties is a form of voter suppression, discouraging young people to vote because most of them don't own property. But what would encourage young people to vote? If young people are taught how to vote, if better candidates with better issues campaign, and if voting is more economically efficient, young people will vote more. Lack of proper education is one of the major reasons why young people don't vote. A study shows that only 26% of Americans today can name the 3 branches of government. This is because young people are not taught civic education in schools. Teaching young people about the importance of voting and the different procedures surrounding elections would clear a lot of doubts and help them be more confident about their voting rights. Famous English primatologist Jane Goodall once said, "Young people, when informed and empowered, can indeed change the world." At the Alameda Science and Technology Institute, there are no civic education classes. But luckily, I have teachers who take the time to teach me and my classmates voting and why it's important. So I know for a fact, now once I am 18, I will do everything I can to vote. If schools offer civic education at a young age and all the way through college, more millennials will vote. There are economic issues that cause young people to not vote. For example, people under 30 have less money than people over 30, which makes it a lot harder for them to vote, especially if they have to work 2 jobs because of their bills. They lack the time to actually go to the polls. They may not have a chance to look into the candidates to see who they want to support, or they don't have a car to get to these stations. If the government creates more voting stations 10 miles away from each voting stations in cities where most millennials live, they won't have to worry about means of getting to these stations, resulting in more millennial voting turnouts. Candidates are also an important reason why they don't vote. Candidates don't try to outreach to young voters. They don't give them a chance. And oftentimes, the issues brought up are meant for older people, like property taxes, personal business taxes, or family financial security. I believe that if a candidate for any election brings about environmental issues or issues about the current minimum wage, more young people would support that candidate. According to The National, the environment ranked 3rd in the top 5 challenges faced by young people today. In order to get more young people to vote, using things they get most of their education and news from will be really effective. Using social media apps like Snapchat or Instagram or Facebook to spread voting information will increase young people's voting turnout. Former Secretary General of the United Nations, Kofi Annan, said, "Have confidence in young people. Give them a chance, and they will surprise you." If schools offer civic education at a young age, if millennials are provided with the time necessary for voting, if better candidates with better issues campaign, and if voting is more efficient economically for millennials, we will see more voting turnouts. After all, voting is the first duty of a democracy. Everyone, no matter what, should vote so that we can keep this democracy. The question to ask is, would you blame them for not being able to vote if they never really got the chance? Thank you.
This is what we have to do. Make voting a holiday. Bone up on your technology, social media people. I know because editor after editor have told me that I don't have a social media presence, ain't nobody gonna buy my book. And what else we have to do here? We have to make it so all they have to do is click a button. Just pull out that phone and vote on a telephone or something. This is what we have to do. This is interesting. So, thank you, speakers. And now we're going to get ready for the tallying. And while that is going on, Shirley, you wanted to say something? Okay. We're going to tally the ballots, and then after that we'll hear from Judge Flanagan And from the League of Women Voters, first Vice President, Gloria Chung-Hu. Just to say a few words while the votes are being tallied. Gloria?
I'm a lot shorter than Alice is. I'm just so thrilled to see the young people here. You all did such a wonderful job. It's inspiring for me. And I hope you go on to be good models and role models for your classmates and those around you, because you all have great messages. The League is really an organization that I've been so delighted to have been a part of for, a good almost 15 years now. I retired some years ago and became even more active. But one of the things that it reminds me about was when I was your age. I think I was on the debate team. I was also in student government. But you're right, and I think one of you said that, starting as young people, getting them engaged is so important now. I hope and I expect I'll see among you perhaps some elected leaders, some people who will lead us in government and who will be doing great things. It is so critical for us to get not only young people, but all citizens engaged in voting and being informed. And this is the work of the League. It's not enough just to be a citizen or just enough to register. You have to vote, you have to participate. And I think the other piece that's really important that I think that I like doing best with the League is the advocacy and engagement. We are committed to working together to making our lives a better place for all citizens. And we want to be an inclusive society that engages all people. The League, for example, is doing a lot of work, and I know that I know Oakland, maybe Alameda is also, for example, doing registration in some of the jails. We want to work with disenfranchised elements of our community, and I think that that's really important as well. But it's these kinds of things that we must look at and examine in our society to make it a more inclusive one. We are more increasingly diverse, and I think the League is really right now working very hard to make sure that as we look at our government and our system, it's not only about getting people to vote, but to vote with a thought about how we can be inclusive, how we can make life better. Climate change was mentioned. That is a real key concern of the League. We've been active on it since the 70s when we pushed for the Clean Air and the Clean Water Act. But for those of you who are not familiar with the League, I'll make my pitch and I'll join Alice in saying, please come and join us. The League of Women Voters is open to men and women and young people. Please think about becoming League members and joining us in really the long struggle to make sure that good government is something we'll always have and not fall apart. Thank you.